Thank you for joining us for live paranormal radio. From the paranormal to the unexplained, it all happens here. It all happens here. Looking to enhance your radio experience? Participate in our live video chat 24/7 with our live paranormal radio show hosts and other like-minded people. Live. Paranormal.com, the only interactive social chat room supported by Full Interaction Media. Stop by now and join the fun. Stop by now and join the fun.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our show. Finally, after 3 weeks of a hiatus, we are back, and we are back and large. And I want everybody who to know who doesn't already know that Erik is my spirit guide son, and in this radio show, I hope that he can help you navigate through your human experience, answer some questions, etc. Now, for this week's show, Erik wants to talk about uncertainty. Many people feel that their future is uncertain and that, they're just floating aimlessly through life with little or no direction. So, of course, this can bring on a lot of anxiety and depression. Erik, first of all, I want to tell you I love you so much. Hi, Kim.
Hello. Erik says, Mom, I love you. He says, you know how much I love you. And then he goes, wait, do you know how much I love you? And he put his arms out real big.
Of course I do. But how can you help people who struggle with this whole uncertainty thing?
He says, pull up a chair. I hope you're ready, because there's a lot that he wants to say. There's a lot he wants to say about this. Hope you all have your ears on. Take some notes, because I know a lot of people that suffer with this, and what is birthed from uncertainty. So many things come from it, he says. So let's get you started. He said, let's help you figure out how to pinpoint uncertainty, the side effects of uncertainty, and the treatment, he says. He says, I'm going to be the doctor tonight.
Dr. Erik, go for it.
He's goofy. He says, well, Mom, first of all, when fear, anxiety, even depression, apprehension come from uncertainty, he says the number one most common thing people have to recognize is what they're doing to their self while they're acknowledging their feelings of uncertainty. Uncertainty doesn't have to be about the future. It can also be about the past, he says. He says, but one thing I want you all to think about is that the right now is never uncertain. You have right now. You always have right now, and you always have control over right now. Everything else is an illusion. So, Mom, he says, really, to try to control the outcome of anything that isn't right now, that's an illusion. And then what happens is, in the process of that, we become disillusioned. We become separate from our ability to be mindful, to be connected in the now moment. And then when we get into that disoriented space of, that he calls like disillusion, he shows himself, he's literally walking around like drunk out of his mind. That's what he looks like. He's like stumbling all over the place. But what he's saying is you become disoriented, and that's when people become fearful or anxious. It's all the what ifs, the what abouts, and am I gonnas, he says. So even though you may be facing uncertainty, even tonight, he says not even 10 years down the road or 5 years, maybe tonight is uncertain for you. But remember what you're asking yourself to do. You're asking yourself to be outside of right now, even thinking a couple hours ahead of time. And when you do that, he says, truthfully, he's being really compassionate. He says, truthfully, you're being unfair to yourself.
Well, let me ask you one question. Erik, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I don't understand how uncertainty can have anything to do with the past. Can you explain that before you go on?
Yeah. He says, oh, yeah, Mom. He says, people look back all the time and think, well, did I make the right decision? I'm not sure. Or was that supposed to happen? He says, second-guessing themselves and doubting and uncertain about the decisions they made, the choices they made, the things they did, and they regurgitate that uncertainty, Mom. He says that too. He said, Kim, talk about the process of losing a loved one. He's actually using one of my best friends as an example. She still struggles with, did I do all the right things? And through that uncertainty, she deals with such anxiety, fear, depression, because she still thinks that she could have done more for her mother. When her mother fell ill and then eventually made her transition, she, basically brought in hospice, and they put her on medication to keep her comfortable. And my friend has herself convinced that she feels as though she put her mom to sleep. And so she's carrying that burden that she's so stricken with that, and she's still uncertain about, did I make the right decisions? And she carries that uncertainty with her, creating, illness, anxiety, fear, apprehension. So, Mom, he says
Guilt.
Both ways. He says in the past people regurgitate it. I hate when he uses that word. It's so gross. And then, too, in the future. But he says if you truly let go of, he says, and I know it's hard because the ego in us all wants to do it, wants to think about the future and wants to think about what's ahead of us. But if you truly allow yourself to surrender your ego completely and let go of all of that, just be present with yourself, he says, I promise that your anxieties will at least lessen. They will reduce. They will soften, he says. But it takes practice, and you have to, and it takes diligence, he says, because even sometimes when people connect to the now, they still hear those thoughts, well, what about her? Oh, my gosh, I have to, because of, fearing that they need to plan for the future, and even if they're uncertain, they try to throw out these plans to comfort themselves. But
like what?
Mom, all of that comes from
plan?
ego, the control factor in it, he says.
Okay, what do you mean by plan?
He says when people face uncertainty, and it's funny because apparently I do this a lot, but I guess I didn't realize I did, but he's laughing at me and pointing. He's like, you do this all the time. So if you're facing uncertainty...
he's going to bring it out. You can't hide from Erik, okay?
No, you cannot. When you face uncertainty, I know he's pointing me out and saying that you can... Okay, the need for control comes from ego. And when things are uncertain, you then begin to plan or, make plans or organize things to sort of pacify the uncertainty or to hush the uncertainty and think, well, I got to figure it out. It's not uncertain anymore. I got a plan. He kind of laughs and rolls his eyes. He's like, you can have your plan. You can take your plan with you. But what's meant to be is always going to be. So have faith more so in that. Connect now to the now and let the rest take care of itself. He says, because he's kind of, and this is where I feel like I want to argue with him, because he makes me feel like what he's showing me is like having your plans and your organization, to a degree is an illusion. But then my argument with him would be, well, wait a minute, I thought our thoughts create our reality, so if I think about it, can't I manifest it? So he's going,
good one,
he goes,
Kim, good one.
He says you're getting way ahead of yourself. So, again, it's that, okay, so my question then came from ego. He says it came from, like, the need for control once again. So I guess that's a whole other can of worms we can open next time, he says.
Okay.
But for those of you facing uncertainty in a relationship, in a career, in a lifestyle, no matter what it may be, he says, ease up. He says, don't put so much pressure on yourself to make decisions. Just be present with the now moment and listen to what right now feels like and sounds like, because when you connect to the what ifs and what abouts, like the future, or the past, you rob yourself the true ability to hear your true thoughts and feelings. You sort of create from ego, which is an illusion, he says. He's getting deep, and it's making my head swim. But he says
so
all of that uncertainty.
So right.
Yeah, all of that uncertainty comes from the human side of us, the human nature in us to want control. And when we feel like we don't have that, that's when we start to freak out.
Well, why are we like that? Why do we humans feel like we need to control everything?
He just taps on his chest and says, ego. We all have those aspects in us. We all have ego in us, and when you reside more in ego, Mom, when you stay there, he said, when you unpack your bags in that shit, then ego begins to rule you. Ego creates illusions, and then you yourself become disillusioned to what is reality.
Well, it must have had a reason to exist. Maybe it helped on a primitive level, helped us achieve survival.
He says, he's kind of quiet. He says, well, that's true, but he's talking about when we give way to or sort of surrender to our anxieties and let our anxieties take over, we then envelop ourselves into a new reality. In that new reality, he says two things. He's holding his index fingers up. Ego isn't always bad. It isn't, and even your false self, associated with ego isn't a bad thing, because again, Mom, he says, if we didn't have that experience and that polarity, we wouldn't know any different. We wouldn't evolve. So ego is necessary for evolution, but what's more important, he says, is the ability for like higher consciousness or expansion, so that you can recognize when ego is making your life miserable, basically. Because if you can see, sort of like, we all talk about your higher self, and what he shows is when you can really maintain a perspective from your higher self, and you can observe yourself either acting in ego or acting in love. Ego comes from fear anyway, he says. But when you can observe yourself in either situation from your higher perspective, from your higher self, then is when evolution occurs. So
really, ego pretty much gets us into deep shit, so that we can have the contrast, the polarity, in order to grow.
He says that's right, Mom. Believe it or not, but sometimes it's needed too. It's needed to go through those anxieties and uncertainties, because if we didn't, how would we learn our own personal strength or whatever comes from it? So it's needed for evolution, but doesn't always mean it's easy.
Mm-mm.
Especially
I know I had a lot of anxiety after you died, Erik. It's like, did I miss something? Is there anything I could have done to have stopped you from taking your life? Did I do anything wrong? So I can understand now what you mean by uncertainty surrounding the past. And that was those were difficult questions to process.
He says, I know, Mom, and he says so many people unfairly carry that burden on their shoulders, sometimes for the rest of their life, and then it hinders the way they're able to live. They're able to live without, this is difficult. He says, without absolution. I don't even know if that's a word, Erik. But he's talking about, without carrying burdens, when you're burdens associated with another's life and lifespan. He says all of us have to remember we're never in charge of anybody else's life. Never could be. That's up to something much higher than us human beings. But our essence is absolute until we develop in our ego, and then we become less than pure or whole, he says. And then that's when the whole shitstorm starts to happen.
Hate those shitstorms. Is there any other advice you can give to somebody who is living in a great deal of uncertainty? And then we'll take calls from listeners.
Oh, he's so funny. I'm laughing at him like, really, shitstorm? And he's like, what? Don't you ever say that? Okay. He says, guys, I want you to remember, he says, I know that some of you fall to your knees with anxiety or fear because of uncertainty. And in those moments, first of all, I want you to remember you can ask me for help. He says, he says, you don't ask me for too much too often. He says, people tell themselves that all the time. Oh, I shouldn't ask Erik because I asked him for help yesterday. He's kind of laughing and saying, you can't wear me out. But he says, in those moments where you fall to your knees and you need help, be in that moment. You don't have to sweep it under the rug. You don't have to hush it. Be right there in that moment and understand that that's all you truly have control over. He says one more quick thing to think about, too, just as a motivational thing to kind of work through anxiety. He says just remember your right now creates your tomorrow. So if you always surrender and give way to anxiety and you even develop an attachment to it, remember that creates your tomorrow, and that will continue to manifest the very same experiences over and over. And I know none of you want that for yourself. So if you can be aware in those moments, remember you have the power to change it too. He says, just by being in that moment, accepting it for what it is, and then changing your thoughts, changing the way you think about something or the way you react. He says, you know your old patterns, you know your old habits, and the way you generally react. So change it up. Do something different in order to change that vibrational pattern. That way you don't.
Can you give us an example? Give an example on, somebody's uncertain about, the future of their job. How can they tweak their perception or their perspective to allay that anxiety?
He says, sure, Mom. He says, for those of you that are uncertain about your job or the security of your job, remember in that you're pulling yourself out of the now. If you have that job right now, that's what you need to connect to manifest the abundance of it and its continuation. So even though things might be shaky or there might be a lot of turnover, he says, remember what you have right now is what you have right now. And if you connect to that mentally and emotionally and align with the emotional reality of what you hope for as if it exists, then you'll manifest the same. But if you align emotionally with what you don't want, like, fear and anxiety that, I might not have my job by the end of the week, I'm not sure. If you emotionally align with that devastation, you're going to help manifest the reality that you really don't want for yourself. So He just kind of like, he has his hands like, he's like, like how a little boy would be acting like he has guns in his hands. Like he's like shooting like a cowboy. And then he blows the top of his finger and he says, how about those emotional realities? He's just being really goofy. He says, emotionally align with it to manifest it. Either way, you're going to manifest it. So align with what you do want and not what you don't want, because when we get into our fear and our anxiety, we're helping that situation manifest that we're afraid of.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Thank you, Erik,
hopefully
so
I translated that well enough.
Yeah, that sounds great. Are you ready to take listeners now?
He says, yep. And he's like blowing off his guns, like he's got his hands in the shape of a pistol, and he's like acting like a cowboy for some reason.
Oh. All right, so I want to first thank liveparanormal.com for giving us this avenue to have this radio show. So shout out to them.
Yeah.
They have lots of great shows. You guys need to check out what they're all about. But right now, we are going to talk to somebody from the 561 area code. Hello, how are you? And welcome to the show.
Elisa?
Yes.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Sure.
My name is Dalva.
Hi, Dalva. How are you doing?
Thank you so much. I cannot. Oh, my goodness. I'm so nervous. Okay, my name is Dalva, and I'm calling from West Palm Beach, Florida.
Oh,
and
lucky
I
you.
appreciate so much you taking my call. Oh, my goodness. Thank you, Lisa. I love you so much. I love Erik. Erik, I love you. You're always in my heart. And Lisa, you too, and Ken, I adore you all. You're doing a beautiful job. Thank you so much.
That means so much. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a very blessed day for me. It's a very blessed moment. I have been waiting for this moment for over 2 years. And I know one day Erik would help me, because when I bought his 2 books, I read already, and I'm starting rereading again. And I knew it. I felt that Erik would come up to help me. So over 2 years ago, I was working out. I do take very good care of myself. And I'm kind of nervous. I don't know if my English will come out.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
I thank you. So I love to take care of myself. So I was working out with heavy weights. And this day I was very stressed out, so I overdid. Like, I'm a very intense person. So I did so many reps with my lower body, with my hips, with my legs, my buttocks. So after a few days, I had started having a very painful hips and legs. And the funny thing is, the muscles in my buttocks, I had a very round shape. So the muscles in my buttocks collapsed.
Oh.
And until today, so if I go out, I have to put a padded panties. Otherwise, I feel so embarrassed to go out. So after this day, my life changed a lot. So I went to many specialists, and I even have done 2 MRIs, but no doctors could help me. They can't figure out what is wrong with me. So at first they think it's illusion from my mind, because they don't see anything wrong. But I come from South America, so usually we have a very round shape in the bottom. So maybe comparison to here, I don't know. But they think there is nothing wrong with me. But I have a very painful head. And my muscle, I have no muscles. I'm flat. It's even sometimes, most of the time, when I sit down, I cannot sit down for too long, because there is no muscle to support, to help me there. So
that must be miserable, Dalva. That must be absolutely miserable.
You have no idea how I changed.
Well, Erik, what's going on, Erik?
Happy. Yeah.
What's going on, Erik? What happened?
First of all, he's passing all that love right back to you.
Thank you.
He says a couple things to think about here. First of all, he makes me feel like there is like I don't know what he calls it nerve death. He makes me feel like there's a nerve that is like
I figured
completely,
it sounded like it have atrophy. Yeah.
Right. He makes me feel like there's he's actually literally showing me inside the muscle fibers. I see. It seems like there's nerves that are not passing through the right canals anyway, and then it seems like they're. I don't want to say severed, but the way that he's showing like the death around each end of the nerve, It's extremely damaged.
Yes.
And then also, when I said, well, what can she do? First of all, aside from any treatments, any doctors, any MRIs or anything like that, he's showing you must first believe that your body has the ability to heal before it even truly can. He says, and I'm not talking about, okay, I'm ready for this to heal, let's move on. He says, I'm really talking about you taking time to envision it and believe in your body's ability to heal itself before you see any improvement. Because
I thought about that. Yes.
He says if you continue to tell yourself how bad a shape you're in, how miserable it makes you, you continue to acknowledge it, it continues to manifest. So continue to see and give gratitude for healing light that comes in, that gives new life to the nerve roots, he says, and the surrounding musculature.
Yes.
So he said, he says it wouldn't be a bad idea to ask my buddy Raphael for healing, Archangel Raphael for healing.
Oh, I asked so many times already. Okay.
So the biggest key in any healing, you have to believe your body can heal itself, because before any healing can occur, you have to be in that vibration first. You have to be in that frequency, in that zone.
I believe what you're saying. I believe what you're saying, because I thought about the same thoughts, but over 2 years, I said, my gosh, if he didn't heal yet, when it's going to happen? You know what I mean? When you'll be apprehensive, you'll be anxious, because it's so, it makes it so much.
Is there any tests that she needs to undergo to convince the doctors, to show the doctors what's going on? What about nerve conduction velocities or EMGs? MRI here. What can be done?
He says nerve conduction tests would help. He actually makes me feel like, I know this might sound really bizarre, but he's actually showing like a scope. I don't even know if they do something like that where they go in just to, if they can see in that area, just to scope the nerve roots, or but he's actually like going inside to see. It's almost like an.
Are you talking about actually using a scope, or are you talking about doing an MRI, Erik, to see these?
I did nerves? Already 2 MRIs. I did 2, and I'm
MRIs.
claustrophobic. It was awful.
He's showing like actually going in the body, like with a camera, to look around, like an exploration kind of thing.
What kind of doctor is that? What kind of doctor does that?
He doesn't answer that. He's saying nerve conduction test also.
Is it neurologist or neurosurgeon?
Right, neurologist.
Which one?
Neurologist.
Neurologist or neurosurgeon, Erik?
He says neurosurgeon. He says you need to see a neurosurgeon.
Oh my goodness, that's deep here. Oh goodness.
Hopefully that helps you, and
what will be the cure?
I wish you the best. Just remember.
How will she be cured? How will she be cured? What will it take?
Hey, Lisa, can you hear me?
Yes. What is it going to take to cure her?
He makes me feel like, I don't even know if they do this, but it seems like rerouting of nerves or musculature, because it seems like it's like, let's say, for example, a nerve root's supposed to pass through a certain canal, but it passes through muscle tissue instead. That's what he makes me feel like. It's not even in the right place. And because he makes me feel like
move, my hips move funny.
Maybe it's a
it seems like it seems like there needs to be some rerouting of musculature or like tendons or nerves, because it's continually up against damage. Like I feel what he's showing me is like it continually gets scraped and damaged, like through inflammation. It's in a place.
Don't check out a neurosurgeon, and maybe that he will be he or she will be the answer to your prayers, baby.
Neurosurgeon.
And thanks for calling in.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Kim. Thank you, Erik.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Dalva.
Lisa. Send all my
Thank
love.
you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We
Bye.
love you back.
We
Bye.
love you too. Bye.
Gosh, I sure hope she stops suffering. That's just awful to be in chronic pain like that, especially somebody who seems to have been very athletic and very active.
Yeah, no kidding. Erik makes me feel like it's a pretty difficult situation, like it's constantly up against abuse, the nerves. So
it must be. It's going to take some sort of surgery then. All right, let's take another caller from the 347 area code. Hi there. Welcome to the show.
Hi there. Thank you
for
having me.
Sure. What's your first name?
It's Jillian.
Hi. What's
up? How are you?
Good.
Nothing much. I love this, the uncertainty part that Erik was talking about. I can relate. And I have a question about that. But first, I want to ask another question. I want to ask Erik if I'm able to channel, and then if so, then will he, if I set up a time and a day, whatever, if he would come and help me do so.
If he doesn't, I'll spank him.
He's kind of smiling and laughing. First of all, he says yes. Everybody's a channel. And that's what he's trying to help people realize, I think. It seems like anyway, especially out on these events when we travel. He's trying to help everybody understand their own abilities. But he kind of laughs and smiles like with complete charm and sincerity. And he says, you don't have to set up a date and time for me to help you. It's much more simple than that. He says, yes. He says that you're clairaudient, so really put your awareness there. Just focus on what you hear, but don't have expectations associated with it, meaning don't expect to hear one way or another. Just accept whatever you may hear. Okay. All right, that's hard. He wants me to explain. He says, but explain to her, though, how the sounds are different. So that's really hard to explain. It's kind of like I know when I'm hearing something through clairaudience versus just my regular old hearing, because I can also feel the vibration is different. It just feels like a much higher vibration when I'm hearing Erik or music that I know isn't of this physical world. It's the vibration, too, that he's encouraging you to pay attention to when you open up to channel. He says, of course, he says, this is the good shit, so of course I would love to help you develop yourself in that way. He says, I love helping people because you light up when you do it, and especially when you realize it's happening. He says, so I love watching that. It's like it's my own little fireworks show.
That's awesome.
So yeah, trust what you hear, trust what you feel. There is no reason to have fear and no reason to doubt, he says.
So what do you mean? It feels different to a different vibration? Tell me what that feels like.
Yeah, like he says, Mom, for the clairaudience, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, let me see what he says. Okay, so he says, let's say you're, channeling, you're meditating. Well, you don't even have to really be meditating to hear. It's just a shift in your awareness, Mom, he says, that sort of turns your ears on in a new way. I know that sounds really weird, but he's using image to talk, and that's the best way I can explain it. Because he's showing, turning his ears up a few notches to where it perceives more than what, like a higher scale, more than what the human ears are used to, he says. So when you do that, also pay attention to what you feel, because he says sometimes you'll know. Oh my God, he's talking about.
Oh, poor Cam. What did he put you
Sorry,
through?
guys, but he's talking about farting. It's like you'll know if I'm making noise or if it's from me or if it's in the room with you. It's going. I can't stop laughing. The vibration of it's going to feel different, but he says.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know, right? Great example.
So angelic farts are different.
He says, when you hear it, the way you perceive it is much different. I guess it's hard. He says maybe it's a little unfair just because some people can be really in tune with their clairsentience than others. It depends on where you have your awareness too, Mom. He says if you can have awareness heavily through clairaudience and clairsentience, then you can pay attention to what you're feeling as you're hearing it too. He says either way, when you hear something and you think it's of the spiritual realm, the best thing to do is just go to your heart and ask, and trust what your heart gives you, because your heart knows more than your head. And he just kind of giggles when he said that. He just said, if I could teach, he said, Mom, he's like, stop the show, hold on. He says, if I could just teach people one thing and only one thing ever, if I was just limited to one thing, it would be, of course, besides love, he says, but he says it would be to trust yourself, to trust the heart. The heart knows everything. The heart holds everything you need to know for your best life possible, even if that means developing yourself as a channel. So he says, I hope you all are listening, and I hope you all.
I did. But before I ask that, just to clarify, would it be the same for trance channeling? Because that's what I was specifically talking about. Would it be the same that I would do for trance channeling?
He says conscious versus unconscious channeling is much different. He says if it's trance channeling, again, it's not like you have to set a certain date and time to get me to say, oh, yep, I'll be there. I'll make sure I'm there on time. He says because, time is sort of irrelevant to him. But if it's trance channeling, he says that's a whole different story, because then you have to completely separate from all the things that make you you. You really have to know your spiritual self and your spiritual body in order to slightly detach, not completely, but detach from your physical self to let myself or anybody else in. Again, that takes a lot of trust, he says. He says he wants me to share with you, I don't know if you've ever read anything about trance channeling or how to do it, but for all of you guys listening too, he says, tell her to do it like you did, Kim. When I first attempted trance channeling, Erik, I kind of really had no idea what that even meant, but I did know that I could trust Erik, and I had never read the first thing about it, and I thought, well, I'm just going to trust. I'm just going to let whatever happens happen naturally and just trust the whole process. And he's encouraging you to do the same thing, because if you read about it and let others teach you, that's just from their perspective, and it could limit you. It could develop attachments. So it's best to go in it organically, like authentically. So
that sounds right. Now, real briefly, can you ask your other question and make it maybe kind of brief so somebody else can?
Yeah. So about the uncertainty. In the next couple of months, 7 weeks or so, I'm planning a move to California, and it's kind of exciting, but at the same time, it's a little bit, what the hell am I doing? I don't have a place set up. My furniture is still all over the place. I need to sell those. So it's kind of like how, so I just continue with the excitement just to see what will happen, just go for it and just not think about how it's going to happen, because right now I have no idea where to start or where to go. It's
he
just...
Says, he says to you, is it something you want? Is it something you feel? Do you feel it in your heart that you need to go, that you need to try? And if you can answer yes to that, he says, then that's all you need to know, that you have to trust that, because your heart is most connected to your highest self. Your highest self knows your best interest for evolution. Doesn't always mean it's going to be easy, he says, but for you to evolve, grow. So if you feel the tug in your heart, once again, trust. He says, trust that. He says, because
that helps
if you let all these fears kind of rule your decisions, he says, then is when it makes it a difficult transition.
Yeah.
Hopefully that helps you.
I'm going to go for it.
Thank you for calling in. And we'll be ready for you.
I want to find out how Kim did her channeling. Should I go on her website?
Yes, you can check out my website. Send me an email at kimbabcock.net.
Okay, will do. Thank you, guys. Love you all.
All right, you're welcome.
Good luck, sweetie. All right, let's take somebody from the 734 area code. Hi there. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh, my gosh. Elisa?
How are you? Yeah.
Oh, I'm fine. Erik, Kim, Elisa, I love you guys. I love you so much.
We love you too.
Oh, we love you back.
Oh, Erik, my husband died from colon cancer, and 8 months later, I lost my son to suicide. And
I'm so sorry.
He was the backbone of the family, and our family is so broken right now, especially my relationship with my daughters. And I wanted to ask Erik, is there anything I can do to mend our relationships?
Oh, goodness.
Oh, goodness. I'm so sorry
I
for
just
your
wish
losses.
you were here so I can give you a big hug, you know?
I know. Wow.
Oh.
Erik says the best thing you can do when going through such devastation, first of all, for all of you to allow grief and allow the process of grief. He says,
I've already done that. I just want to mend my relationship with my daughters.
Yeah, because he makes me feel like the way one grieves, you know, the way one grieves versus another is very different. He makes me feel like the daughters are still grieving, or a lot of anger has been born from this. So that's what's causing the divide, he says. And he unfortunately, though, he makes me feel like they're not done processing their feelings and their emotions associated with the losses, because they are carrying a sense of betrayal, he says, like they feel betrayed by life, like, I can't believe this happened in my life, you know, why did my life turn out like this? And that is creating a lot of boundaries that, you know, they're putting in place that they maybe don't realize, keeping people at bay, he says. So the way that you can help that first is to encourage them to talk, but he even says that's going to be hard, to talk about the way they feel and why they feel that way.
They won't talk.
Yeah, that's why he says that's even going to be hard, because they're still very sort of like shut out. They keep people shut out, and they keep their emotions shut in, he says. So sometimes you have to give them the space required to allow them their healing, even though you may want to just come in and help them heal. He's encouraging you to let them have their space, still being, you know, supportive as you can, but he makes me feel like they feel very betrayed by life right now, life in general. So they're keeping distance because now they have a lot of fear, he says, thinking, well, what next? What next? I never thought my life would entail all of this, so what next? And that's just a fear-based place that they are right now, and fear needs, they're very reactive and almost emotionally combative, he said.
Yes.
So he's just encouraging you to give them space, emotional space.
Are they taking things out on you for any reason?
They won't even talk with me.
Why? Are they mad?
I don't know. He was always the peacemaker if we ever disagreed, and they just have turned their back on me. And
why? What is their reasoning?
Erik says that they're blaming their mother unfairly because he says, Mom, this is what happens when people fall to ego and don't even realize it. When something hurts so deep or is so shocking, they have to place blame almost to pacify their pain or to fulfill themselves. You know, unfortunately, it's false fulfillment, though, he says. So he actually makes me feel like they blame their mother because they don't know how else to cope. They don't know what to do. Have you or your family maybe considered some counseling? Because he makes me feel like
they will not consider it. I just want Erik to tell me if there's anything that I can do to change it.
He says the best thing you can do, he says, I'm going to tell you one thing, and he's being really stern. He says nothing stands the test of time like love. So continue to give love and support no matter what. He says even if they're unkind to you, even if they're rude to you, love them anyway because they're blind to their own actions. They don't understand what they're doing, he says. And then eventually I feel like that will grow weary, but your love doesn't grow tired, he says. True love does not grow tired. So if there's anything you can do, you can transmute something by loving it, but he's been saying this a lot lately, if you go there with them and become reactive, then you just transmit their pain right back to them or your pain to them. So transmute it with love and acceptance and understanding. That way you don't transmute it. Other than that, though, he says just to give them emotional space.
Okay.
Did they put some blame on you unfairly?
It was so devastating that I don't think they know where to put their feelings. And my daughter is a doctor. I mean, I just don't understand it. She cut off all ties. She will not talk with me. I went through a bout of depression, and she just said she doesn't want my grandchildren to be around me when I'm depressed.
Oh my God, that's when you need family the most.
Yeah. If you are open to it, just know that Erik is highly suggesting counseling because sometimes new perspectives brought in and even just that unbiased, person to talk to is going to be extremely beneficial. And I don't know if your daughters would be open, but if you would be open, he still shows this bringing you to a place of strength.
I've gone to counseling. I've gone to counseling.
Good. He shows
we got to bring
very
your daughters
needed.
Too. Yeah.
We were always so close until all these tragedies happened.
Well, 75% of mother-father relationships end after a child dies. So it's very hard on relationships. And my husband and I, we stuck it out. Boy, it was really tough, and we nearly did not make it. But when Erik died, but we hung on. We got a lot of therapy, and we're stronger than we were before. So maybe some emotional distance, some time, constantly, telling them by email or whatever that you love them, you're there for them, you're here to listen. and just to keep sending the love out. Maybe they'll come around.
I wanted to ask Erik if he thought this might be a life pre-birth contract thing.
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah. He does say that it is. He says it's a part of your spiritual contract to, he says, this forces you to look inside and ask, this is about self-worth, he said, to stand alone in your self-worth and know what that is without others justifying that for you. Self-directed or self-justified worth, he says. So sometimes we can write contracts for ourselves that may seem just unthinkable, but in the end, we come out, evolved in ways that we knew we needed before we incarnated, he says. So this, too, is a part of that.
So you are worthy. You are loved. You are worth so much. You are perfect in every way, in spite of what other family members, or how they treat you. So just remember that.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much. I love you.
You're so welcome. We love you too. Continue to take care of yourself.
Yeah, keep in touch with me. Let me know how things go. I'm here. I got your back. I got your back, baby.
Okay. Thank you. Bye now.
Sure. Love you.
Bye-bye.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, bless her heart.
Pain. I just don't understand why family falls apart in times like this when they need to stay together. I just don't get it. I think
I know.
We don't know all the story, but gosh, it's just devastating.
I could not imagine.
Okay. Erik, you help her, okay?
Oh, he took his hat off, he said, and he put his hat on his chest. He said, okay, Mom. He said, your request is my command.
Oh, awesome.
So sweet.
Oh. All right, well, I love you, Erik, and thank you guys for joining us in our show. Remember that we've got the multi-city tour going on still. We've got Chicago coming out. Sign up, people. And then we've got Sedona and other cities, Austin, etc. So check out www.kimbabcock, BABCOCK.net, not .com. And, check out the agenda and join us. I'd love to see you guys. Kim, would you like to close with anything? Or Erik?
Don't forget, guys, if you know somebody that can benefit from checking out the Channeling Erik blog, I promise you, you will not leave your friends or your family high and dry. Send it to them. Let them know. If you get fulfillment from channelingerik.com, send it on. Share it. Send it to your friends, your family, because you never know how far that one share is going to go. channelingerik.com, you guys, check out the blog. Erik says, Mom, I love you so much. He says, thank you for your hard work. He says, you never cease to amaze me.
You're welcome, and I love you. And thank you so much, Kim, for everything you do and for being the voice for my son. I really am so grateful. And thank you guys listening out there. I'm so glad you joined our show, and we will talk to you next Thursday.
Yes, that's right. Have a good night, everyone. Take care.
Take care, everybody. We love you.
Bye-bye.